There's a lot of people out there that go, well, a slip lead is cool. Choke chains, oh my word, they're the worst. Can only be harnesses. Can only be a collar. I've had every kind of experience where sometimes the harness is the right thing for that dog. But again, if the dog starts pulling and the owner does not know how to use the piece of equipment, it's useless.
A very warm welcome back to the Pause and Effect podcast. I'm with Daniel Stewart, animal behaviorist. Daniel Stewart, we've done a few of these, haven't we?
We have indeed. It's great to be back. It really is good to be back.
First time in this podcast space.
Yeah, it's lovely. I love the decor. I love the colouring. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Oh, thank you for joining me.
Yeah.
So, Daniel, you know, when I receive a call from you or you from me, we're like, okay, what's coming next? I asked you here today because I wanted to do a bit of a case discussion. And I was encouraged to do so because in some of the discussion about where the podcast is going, what information is really relevant for pet owners, where people are struggling, behavior is a recurrent theme. Pet behavior, obviously, our behavior is also. But we all struggle with a lot of common problems with our pets. And I thought that I would provide listeners an opportunity to understand some of the things that I've been tackling and to give them some insight into some of the work that we've been doing. So I'm going to set the scene, if that's okay.
Sure.
To explain what this is about, and so that people can decide very early on whether they feel this is relevant for them. But this is about managing your dog on a dog walk. And this stemmed from an incident that occurred when my dog was out for a dog walk with the dog walker. So I believe in exercising pets. I think it's really important that they get an opportunity to see the outside world. But we have a Rottweiler, Roach, beautiful dog. And it started actually a while back in that I was determined to keep him uncastrated until he reached maturity. Because I was concerned, like a lot of listeners are very concerned about the changes or the scientific evidence now suggesting that there is benefit in delaying castration for reaching skeletal maturity in terms of conformation and longer-term hip dysplasia and elbow issues. So it stemmed from him being an entire male and jumping or taking any opportunity to get out of the property. He loved jumping the wall, a very high wall, and you know the property's got a very high wall. And I would find him sometimes coming home, sitting at the gate on the outside, on the wrong side of the gate, and going, oh my goodness, I hope he hasn't got up to mischief today. And I'm very lucky because obviously there are a lot of risks with that happening. Being hit by a car, coming across people who don't appreciate a big Rottweiler coming to say hello, despite the fact that he's a nice dog, being fearful of large breed dogs, mating with a female that's in heat, lots of things that we can discuss. But the reason I'm giving this background is because I realized that he needed to be castrated. He was behaviorally really keen to roam a big area, and he was determined to smell some female in heat from being out on a dog walk. He wanted to get out. So he was castrated, and that certainly, for me, as an owner, it made a big difference to some of the behavioral issues that we were having with him, cocking his leg and urinating against any new item and so on and so forth. But one of the issues that has continued is that he is not easy to handle when out on a walk. So you received a phone call from me, giving that background. You received a phone call from me one day to say, there's been a bit of an incident. And this was, unfortunately, in the public eye because it was a big discussion on my neighborhood WhatsApp group. And what had happened was the dog walker was out with him, and he has a tendency now to launch at large cars. And you can explain what this means and what he was doing. And in the moment, Tulani, who's my dog walker, pulled him back, and he gave him a little warning. And Tulani, as a reaction, smacked him on the head. Not hard, not a beat, but this was witnessed by someone passing, and it went onto a neighborhood group, and you saw the messages. People were horrified. Whose dog was this? And I sat very quietly because as a vet, this has implications. How can I, as a veterinarian, wanting to maintain a good reputation in that neighborhood, have a dog that behaves badly, always being hit by someone else? And so obviously there are lots of issues that are raised from this. So I called you. The responsible thing to do is you see a problem, let's deal with it. So what was your initial thoughts when I phoned you?
First of all, if you're looking at what you've just said now, I come across it all the time when you've got people that don't want to sterilize their dog, or they're talking about chemical sterilization or whatever, or reducing testosterone and all that kind of stuff. You are talking about male dog. It also stems to also female dogs. So don't always come along and go, it's only the male dog that's going to be the problem, okay, if you don't sterilize it. I believe in sterilization. I think it doesn't resolve 100% behavioral problems. Your dog's not going to come along and just sleep under a tree all day. But it takes away that urge. And when you said just now about, it's important to take your dogs for walks, give them a little bit of stimulation. It's not always physical stimulation. It's also mental stimulation. So taking them for walks is, in my opinion, very, very, very important. So we also have to be able to manage it in a safer circumstance or safer manner. So when you first phoned me up, I thought it was quite funny actually, because I met your dog when it was a pup as well, and we did some training with it then. And I'm like, but hold on a minute, we put the groundwork in. We did. So why are you having problems? Yeah. And that just stems now to come along and go, well, what's caused it? In my opinion, as you say, later sterilization could have been, not 100%, but could have been some of the problem, all right? Secondly is that we often think that, the dog went to puppy classes, therefore that is it. You send your kid to kindergarten, then primary school, then preschool, then and then high school, and then sometimes even university. Why? Well, because you want to give the best for the dog or the child. So it's the same scenario, in my opinion, is that the dogs need to be continuously trained. I often get called out to say, well, how many sessions do you think our dog will need before it's trained? Well, I have the perfect dog in the world, as you know. She's 11 years old. And every day we do some form of training.
It's reinforcing it.
It's reinforcing it all the time. Yeah. And I think, in environments where the owners go to work, they attempt to try and get some of their staff to take the dogs for a walk, as you do. The good thing is with you is that you've dedicated a person, a period of time throughout the day to actually interact with these dogs. And I must admit, it's made a world of difference. So the only thing is that we often, as owners and as employers, we don't actually allow our staff to be trained. Like, hold on, take your dog for a walk. Well, I don't like dogs, or I don't know how to, or I don't. Isn't that a little bit silly on our behalf that we actually don't train our staff to handle our pets? That's, I think, is also one issue, because we can't just blame the dog. We have to be able to go along and look and say, well, the stimulation is too much, or it's not enough. The handler is not adequate, when it says knowledge, knowledgeable. So with Tulani, when we started looking at Roach, I said to him, what time do you goes out? No, 7 o'clock in the morning. Why? Because, well, Dr. Carra said, take it out 7 o'clock in the morning, first thing. I think that's what your words were. And first thing when you get there, take it off for a walk.
And I tell you why, because they love it so much that as soon as Tulani arrives, they want to go. They associate him with, pleasurable activity.
Correct.
He's either playing in the garden, or he's taking them for a walk, or he's feeding them. So they see him and they're like, come. And so you don't think these kind of things through until you've got a problem. And I know we're going to discuss this further, but yes, it seemed sensible to say, okay, first thing, let's get into a routine. The priority is to get them out. So if you can start
Correct.
with that.
And the worst thing about that was that at 7 o'clock in the morning, everybody is driving up and down with their big 4x4s. Well, you've just thrown that dog into the pit of absolute stimulation. So we started off by changing a routine just slightly by saying go at 9 o'clock. That made already a difference. There's not 100 4x4s on the road. There's only 10 of them.
Yeah.
So, and then we started, yes, the dog definitely needed some training, but so did the handlers.
And stopping you there, excuse me for interrupting, but we've spoken before when you do puppy classes here at Hillcrest Veterinary Hospital, and we've spoken before about the benefit of puppy school. And like you say, puppy school is just the start to hopefully continuous and ongoing training throughout the pet's life. But you're doing it as a foundation to teach the owners how to manage basic commands. This is an introduction into teaching owners how to teach their pets, because like you say, you have to be reinforcing the behavior after learning it at puppy school. You can't rely on coming to puppy school 6 or 7 times and say, okay, well, now the dog's forever going to know the sit command. You have to practice that at home.
Correct.
So like we're saying, in the same breath, it was absolutely naive of me to think that I could just say to Tulani, off you go, take the dogs for a walk, you know them, here's a lead, and go, and think that it was going to be okay. Yeah. So important that, like you're saying, whoever is dealing with a dog, whether it's your child, and we have had issues with my son being too excited with the dogs and us discussing how to adjust his behavior in order to get the dogs to respond positively.
Yes.
In the same way, anybody who's dealing with the dogs needs to be part of that education.
Yes, absolutely. And I think then when you explained to me the circumstances in which you were concerned, which I think is very right that you were concerned. Could you imagine that dog pulled Tulani off his feet, number one, into the road, either got hit by a car or damaged the car, and then caused another accident because someone swerved into yet another car? I mean, we can create the worst case scenario, but thank goodness it didn't.
No.
Tulani pulled the dog back because I did speak to him about it. I'm like, how abusive were you? And how he indicated to me, it was a defensive response from his side of it, which I'm sorry, I agree with him. There's a big Rottweiler that turns around, instead of biting the big car, turns around and bites him. I'm like, I think anybody in their right mind would have also been defensive to push the dog away, but still keep the dog under control. And I think that is where it's difficult. So we started working on just calming the dog as opposed to controlling it. And let me explain that. Is that when I say calming the dog, we often try and put a thing in to say the dog needs to act correctly under its own mental mood state, okay? So if we place a few things in like cues that we expect the dog to react, so the dog then stops, calms down, we reward for that calmness. And we put those cues in every single step halfway down the road, at the stop street when the busy cars are going past, full control over the road, but it's in a calm manner. As opposed to where people say, well, I have to control the dog and therefore we've got a tight lead, strangling the dog, holding on tightly.
Lots of tension.
A lot of tension. Why do you want to even take a dog for a walk when you're not?
That's so unpleasant.
For everybody. So that was one thing that we certainly started with Tulani, to say, how are we going to calm the dogs down? And I say the dogs because we're not only talking one dog.
Yeah.
He takes your other 3 dogs also for a walk. Okay. Now he is able to, because they're different ages and so on and so forth, and they go on a calmer situation. But with the Rotti, it's a bigger dog and it's excitable. So we take them for 2 separate, well, he goes for 2 separate walks. He's a fit lad now. But the training is reinforcing calmness and also reward systems. So we would get into a quieter part of your neighborhood and then allow the dog to go and sniff the flowers, cock its leg, do whatever it wants to, as opposed to just bolshing forward at the vehicles or at the dogs next to the other gates. Or no, that is calmness, because we utilize certain cues around the lead actually that would then go, okay, I'm not allowed to do it. Then I will restrain myself as being the dog. I'll be calm and walk past because I know the reward's coming just now. And that is what we've basically been trying to train Tulani to do. But the circumstances or the consequences, sorry is a better word, on an accident happening, and I know it will only be an accident, but the law says you were at fault.
Absolutely.
You took your dog out. You were supposedly under control, and you allowed the dog to jump in a car or jump in front of a car, cause an accident, bite somebody. And, is your dog aggressive? No. But every dog can bite under certain circumstances. So somebody walking down the road and Roach running up to them and going, hi, that person responding like Tulani may be done in a bit of a defensive mechanism, bam, they get nipped. My word, you have law cases of note on your hands.
And even, Roach, he's easily excitable. He's a young male dog. And anything where there are arms flying or someone's reacting, one of the first things he wants to do, even off lead, is to jump up.
Correct.
Like lots of little dogs. And when it's a little dog, it's okay. When it's a large breed dog, particularly a Rottweiler that's scary and heavy, like you say, the situation you end up in is very different.
Yes, absolutely.
And the consequences can be
dire.
Severe. Hey there, pet parents. It's Dr. Carra, the ultra pet vet here. Brachycephalic, meaning short-muzzled dogs, have uniquely shaped jaws that can make picking up and chewing normal kibble really difficult. That's why UltraPet has created a kibble specifically designed for easy pickup. It contains glucosamine, chondroitin, and green lip muscle extract to help support your dog's joints so that they stay mobile and active. The inclusion of beet pulp and prebiotics helps support a healthy gut by promoting the growth of beneficial bacteria in the digestive system. Omega-3 and 6 fatty acids promote a shiny coat and a healthy skin. UltraPet offers a 100% money-back guarantee. Try UltraPet's premium recipe for short-muzzled dogs today.
Especially here in the eThekwini area where you got the metro. So you got the metro guys that actually deal with welfare of communities and people.
Okay.
Not necessarily animals. Okay. They will then come along and impose, or potentially could impose fines, could impose, if it gets so severe that, and they think that you have an aggressive dog, they could actually try and get your dog removed from you, which is severe for the family. And then you've also got certain other laws, the Animal Protection Act. So let's say, for instance, you allowed your dog out and you did not train your handler properly and he, got the dog in front of a car. Well, if you really look at the law, I could prosecute you for animal cruelty, for endangering an animal, okay? Because if you knew that it was going to happen like that, well, just leave your dog at home. Instead of putting the dog into those dangerous situations, Animal Protection Act. Yeah. Then also under Animal Matters Amendment Act, if an animal causes damage to anybody else outside your property, you're liable for an offence. 4 years imprisonment, okay, potentially, depending on the severity and the court cases. So if you're looking at it, there is actually laws and bylaws that create consequences for owners that don't have any kind of respect for communities and for the animal itself. So I find training your dog to be calm, relaxed, non-reactive.
And recall.
Well, absolutely. Yes. Responsive to anything that you're saying is vitally, vitally important. And again, it's not just that from an 8-week-old puppy up to, 4 or 5 months and then go, well, that's enough. It's done. Exactly. Tick that box. No, it is continuous. Dogs have developmental stages. They also have moods. And even to the point where I know you've spoken a lot about different diets and what you should be giving to the dogs and what you shouldn't be giving to the dogs. I think it's important that we also look at that to say, well, what are we feeding our dogs? We can't just go, feed them the best diet. We feed them, and I'm not going to mention any names. Well, it might not be working for that dog. We're all different. I'm a vegetarian because I choose to be. But every now and again, people come along and go, well, if you ate meat, you would be better off in this circumstances. Well, maybe I will, but it's my choice that I eat vegetarian. But the dogs don't often get a choice. But if you give them really bad food for that particular individual animal, then that would also or potentially could change behavior. You know, and we must look at that side as well. So it's not just simply going, let's get a puppy, chuck it in the back garden, and we've got a house, we've got a dog, brilliant, let's move on in life. It's beyond that. It's way, way, way beyond that. And that's why there's so many different dog trainers and behaviorists out there trying to help, you know, the 1 billion dogs in the world that, you know, that live with us to be actually more responsible.
Yeah.
And I think from your circumstances, that there is definitely more improvement that we can do on your dogs and my dogs and everybody else's, that we mustn't just ignore it.
Yeah. And I mean, I was really keen to share this experience because I think it's perceived that, you know, with situations like this, we know what we're doing, whereas there's always an opportunity to learn. And like if we talk to the other professionals in this practice, we always end up with the things that challenge us. Maybe because, you know, the other things we're fine with, but there's always a discussion amongst us, like, oh, my dog got this, and this is how I managed it. And why do they get sick like this? When I think there are so many of us that deal with these things, and I wanted to share the fact that it happens to all of us, and that you have to be proactive about managing it. You know, down to things like using the right lead. So I know that Tulani, for example, and when we walk him, we use the right lead. But some of the things that you will assess when you have a dog that has a problem on a dog walk, which is hopefully what we can provide, you know, more and more clarity on, is that people will be walking their pets on a harness. And I know that there are sometimes issues with that because they're like, oh, great, now I've got great power behind me. And in terms of trying to reinforce good behavior, it's very difficult to manage them when they're on a harness. So can we talk about your advice on using the correct lead and why?
So, yeah, and I'm gonna bring in a whole bunch of different scenarios here because I think it's important, is that there's a lot of people out there that go, well, a slip lead is cruel. Choke chains, oh my word, they're the worst. Can only be harnesses. Can only be a collar. But then you've got the flip side where, you know, if you put a collar on the dog, it might be able to get it off if it walks backwards. A harness creates pulling. You know, a good professor friend of mine said to me, well, they're made for one thing, and it's to run the Iditarod, you know, through the snow with huskies. Well, I've had every kind of experience where sometimes the harness is the right thing for that dog. Believe it or not, a bull terrier once, I put a slip lead on the dog and the dog just froze. And I'm like, there's something wrong here. This is not normal behavior. So immediately, what do? We go and seek veterinary help. And the dog had actually had a bone stuck in its throat. Believe it or not, it swallowed a bone, a marrow bone, so it could still eat. It was going through the marrow bone, but it was stuck in its throat. So could you imagine the pain? And thank goodness, I noticed it as I put the slip lead on. So we trained that dog on a harness. Do you know what I mean? A little bit more difficult, but we used a lot more food reward for the dog to come back to us, but we still had the harness on it. You also get no-pull harnesses. But again, if the dog starts pulling and the owner does not know how to use the piece of equipment, it's useless, okay? If you use a slip lead, can it be abusive? Yes. But could it also be the best thing since sliced bread? Absolutely. I have a lady who's at the present moment she's insisting on using a choke chain. And I'm like, fine, let's use the choke chain, but we use it properly because her intention of the choke chain is the dog can't get out of it. That is her, and it's a safety line for her, for the owner to understand that I feel a little bit more confident because the dog's got this on it. I'll get that dog out of a harness, out of a choke chain, out of absolutely everything in the next couple of weeks because we want to be able to work with the owner. The owner needs to be confident and also knowledgeable on how to use the piece of equipment. So it's not only always about the dog. Okay.
So of all of those, your choice is always ideally obviously, like you've just said, you've taken the time to explain that it is animal dependent or dog dependent. But if you are in training, when you're advising from puppy school, you generally advise a slip.
I always use a slip lead. But what I always do in the beginning is that I actually put it onto the owner first.
Oh.
So the owner understands what the dog feels.
Okay.
And if I do it too tightly, the owner goes, well, that's not pleasant. Well, then don't do it to your dog. It's that simple, you know. I remember the other day somebody had a jacket on and I scruffed the jacket and I was doing this to the jacket. I'm like, that's like the harness. And they go, oh my God, that's unpleasant. So why are you doing it to your dog? You know what I mean? So we try and, when I train dogs, I never go along and go, well, damn thing must listen to me. No, I always try and push it to the owner saying, what would you think of this if this was around your neck or around your hand or whatever the story is? So first of all, we make sure that the owners are understanding the piece of equipment that's on the dog, the abuse that could potentially cause the dog, or the way or the best way of actually using it. And one of the first exercises that we ever do on a slip lead is actually the calming behavior. So we wait for the dog to accept the lead without yanking and pulling and going crazy on it, because that's how a lot of people think we have to do it.
Yeah.
And I literally just sit, hold our arms stationary, so there's no movement on our behalf.
No tension.
No tension. The dog then comes up and we drop treats on the floor so the dog goes, this is the cool spot to be. So there's never any hard choking. Where I think a lot of people misunderstand the slip lead, that's the only way that they must do it. They must just strangle the dog and that damn thing will listen to them. Well, you've got the wrong attitude. It certainly is not that way.
And they're missing that initial step.
They're missing that
calm.
initial step, that calmness that has to be put in place before anything actually happens. So from a puppy point of view, at puppy classes, people rock up with whatever they think is the best item. And I'm going to go, let's do it. Let's work with that harness. Let's work with the half check. Let's work with the collar, whatever it is. When I see that there's a certain issue going on, I'm going to go, let's just change it for a minute. And the dog responds because I've got the dog, okay, normally, because I'll show them how to do it. The dog calms down, and I then go for a walk with the dog on a slip lead. And the dog accepts it. I've said, right, let's accept it. But if I find that there's a issue with that dog, as I say, sometimes you've got neck problems, you've got health problems, you've got all that
breathing
kind of stuff.
issues also.
Exactly.
On the brachycephalics.
Precisely. The brachycephalics are terrible going animals to actually have. So then you would look at a different thing. And even in your online pet shops or your pet shops here, is that you've got multitude of different styles of harnesses, okay? You've also got different thicknesses of slip leads.
Yeah.
And they will all work slightly differently. But what we need to do as humans, as the handlers, is that understand what's the dog going to go through. And if you are happy with the dog suffering, then you shouldn't be handling the dog. But you can use it and you can be abusive. However, we never, ever push it to that abuse. And it could be anything, and I mean anything. You know, I have little trackers on my dogs now. So it's like a health tracker, okay? See how much activity they're doing during the day. And people come, oh, you've got shock collars in your dogs. Actually, no, it's not. But people, again, their perspective of something that they see has to be a negative all the time. And it's, so when you're looking at a slip lead, is it a negative? Not for me.
Not when you use it correctly.
Not when you use it correctly.
Yeah.
And it's, so those are the kind of things that I look at to go, well, if we're going to do something, let's do it to the best of our ability.
Definitely. So in terms of practical advice, one of the first things, and obviously we spoke a bit about the fact that I just, routine, I left, I said, good time to walk the dog. Some of the advice is, especially when you start out and you're trying to reinforce positive behavior, do it when it's quiet. Do it when there are less cars, there are less people, people walking to and from work, cars on the road going to and from school or work. Or go to an area like a park where you've got the ability to get the dog's focus. A lot of that is also the ability to get them into that mood state from our earlier discussions, get them into the mood state where you can then reinforce the correct behavior.
Correct.
What I often, and you've made me aware of it, it's not from me, what I've seen happen a lot is us reinforcing bad behavior. Why does that happen? That kind of no, treat, reward when things are going wrong.
I find, and you just said two things there quite quickly, which I must just remember, mustn't forget them, is that, but I find with people when they're dealing with something, they get very embarrassed that they don't have a proper control over their animals. Or they're thinking that by their dog doing something stupid, they are going to be judged.
It reflects badly on them.
It reflects badly on them, correct. So that's immediately, a common problem. Come, sit, come, sit. And the dog's still 5 meters away. Like, why are you asking the dog to sit? Just get the dog into you. Why don't you go down to the ground where the dog's a lot more attraction for the dog to come to you when you're at their level, okay? And it's, they still have to be, watch what people are thinking about them. And when it comes down to safety of your animal, let's say you're in a dog park and you've got that recall, going haywire, is that the most important thing, in my opinion, should be your dog, not what other people are thinking. People have stopped and looked at me. What am I having a fit or a stroke because I'm rolling on the ground with my dog and I'm, making funny sounds and stuff like. Well, the dog's coming to me, and that is more important than anything else, in my opinion. But so now, instead of you coming along and stopping and waiting for the dog to give you the right behavior of what you're asking for, and the moment it does, then by all means reward the dog. They are trying to bribe the dog. Bribery doesn't work. It's a reward system after the fact. And I think that's where one of the biggest problems is that they just come along and go, okay, well, what do you want to behave? And the dog goes, well, I want you to leave me alone. So they're going to misbehave more because the reward is not high enough yet, or the bribery is not high enough. Okay. And I think that's where a lot of people mistake the concept of positive reinforcement, is that they're trying to go, no, but I'm positive reinforcing. No, you're bribing. Positive reinforcement is if you do, you get. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I often try and explain to the owners is that if you've got a dog in public, let's say for instance, all right, and I walk up to you and your dog automatically tries to jump up at me. If it was my dog, I'm going to correct that behavior. I'm going to ignore you, fix this, wait till it's all calm, then come back to you, okay? Now I can actually talk to you in a decent manner, as opposed to pulling the dog, trying to pat the dog, oh, I'm so sorry, being apologetic and jumping around because, my word, I mustn't be rude to you. Hold on a minute. That's my priority. You approach my bubble. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So you can just hold on. For 30 seconds, it's not a long time. Do you know what I mean? I fix this, now I can be pleasant to you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just get it. They just don't get it. And I find it must be a human thing, But I find that if we can try and change that perspective, that we only reward the dog when it is in a calm, better manner. We also have better communication skills with other humans and also with other dogs, And I think that's where a lot of those kind of problems are coming from. Definitely. Is that people just want to pat or calm down or speak too fast.
And they're in a heightened state.
And they're in a heightened state, and the dog even heightens itself.
So they need to calm down.
Correct.
Be in control.
Yes.
In order to be able to get that message and get the dog into a calm state to communicate.
Yes, like in a green zone.
Yeah. Sure. So how does that look, for example, when typically in South Africa we're walking past other gates with dogs there? How does that look in terms of what are the practical suggestions that you would have given to Lani for when you've got a situation where things are escalating? Is it that you say you stop and let the dog calm down? Is it a distraction as you walk past the thing? What are the practical things or tools that you would give owners?
So there's a couple of things that you can do. Sometimes if there's 5 dogs at the gate, it's very difficult just to stop. We must take also into consideration the community itself. 5 dogs barking, it's a lot of noise. So we don't want to stop in the middle of their gate and try and control the dog. Not yet, not in the beginning. But what I would do is I would know, first of all, the route. Okay, so that's important. If you're going to walk this route, know the route. Is that gate going to be open? And is that dog going to potentially come rushing out because you're there? So now we are causing another issue for the community because it has happened.
Yeah.
But I would look at it and going to go, right, so the gate's coming up. Stop the dog before the gate. Get the look at you. And we also train the look. So in other words, instead of the dog focusing, going stiff at something, the car, the dog, the people, okay, bring it back onto you.
Yeah.
Have a lot more softer look on your face so the dog looks at you and starts calming down. It's another part of the calming process. Reward for that look. Now the dog's got your focus, or you've got the dog's focus, and now we can walk forward slightly by keeping that dog focused on you. Progression, I would then stop in the middle of the driveway, dog barking, look at me. If the dog does look at me, we know we're on a good level because it's ignoring this lot, okay? And you move on. But what we must also look at is what behavior are they displaying? The other dog or dogs, okay? They're doing their job to some extent. Yes, it's excitement for them because they are the unfortunate dogs that have been left at home and they don't have any other stimulation. So that's what's actually causing it. But what also encourages it is that we would walk past Foster, for instance. People go, no, I have to walk really. Let's go. And encourage the dog to speed up, to run off, to forget about your focus.
Or you get tense.
Correct. Like this, and you're strangling the dog when you're walking past.
Like,
okay?
No.
Yes. So now, but these guys in this garden or behind the gate, they will bark, and then we leave. And the dogs go,
Woo-hoo.
We won. Sure, that was close. That was a close call. So what we've done in a couple, not every time because it's very difficult, but I've actually gone and spoken to those certain individuals about their dogs. I'm going to go, we're going to cause a problem for you. We're going to train this dog on the outside of your property. Just bear with us for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And then we would work it that we would stop until this dog stops barking. When this one turns around, we leave. So the new behavior for that dog we're training and this dog is beneficial to everybody. But not many people are actually accepting of that because they have to go through those difficult, noisy periods before anything actually happens.
And is there any merit, a bit like you advising, don't go out in the busy time? Is there, you saying know your route, is there any benefit in initially, especially when you're trying to reinforce some of that calm behavior, just to cross the road and walk on the side where there aren't dogs?
Absolutely.
Or, go at a time where you know that the dogs potentially are sleeping or locked up, later in the evenings, or like, is there a benefit in just avoiding situations like that? Or must you face them?
No, not in the beginning.
Okay.
Not in the beginning. You slowly increase that stimulation, or that stimulus of external stimulus. So I often advise people to go to, we've got a very famous park around us called Memorial Park, where it's a wonderful, happy place for dogs, or could be.
Yeah.
But it's also a very stressful place for some dogs that are not properly sociable. So I always advise parks like that. Of course, dogs should be fully vaccinated and dewormed regularly, but go there when there is nobody else. There was dogs there at 6 o'clock in the morning, okay? They will be there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but let's say at 1 o'clock, there might be one dog and not 50 of them. Go. Allow your dog to sniff, react to those scents, those smells. Where are they? Just chill in the park where nothing negative has actually ever happened. They might see a dog under the tree over there or whatever, but everything is calm. Don't take a new reactive dog to the dog park at 6 in the morning when there's 50 dogs running and playing together, which they know. And now they come up to your dog and go, come, let's go play together.
Join the party.
And then all of a sudden there's this aggression and there's fear-based, where that's just unfair for your dog. So rather do it slowly.
And the others. And
Yeah,
the others.
absolutely.
Yeah.
They also might get injured, you know. Little Jack Russells are wonderful. They'll come up, come, let's go. And then you've got your big Rottweiler that doesn't understand what Jack Russells are doing. So you slowly build it up. And, you know, if you know that if you turn left out of your driveway, you've only got 2 smaller dogs, or as opposed to if you turn right and you've got 5 big dogs, then turn left and engage the small dog that's going to give up quicker because maybe it's an older dog. So allow that initial idea, the yapping, but nothing happened.
Yeah.
Reward for that, move on. All those life experiences need to be slowly improved before you go and throw it into the pit of the 5 big dogs.
Definitely. The other thing that we spoke about was the length of the walk, because there definitely is a difference in Roach's energy at the start versus when he's done a distance and he's now tired, and the ability to actually get his attention and change or modify or any behavior. At the start, he's energetic and he's looking and he's excited to be out. How long should walks be? And I know that's a very broad question, but in terms of practically for owners going out, if they want to be able to exercise their dogs, you know, a few 100 meters down the road is just not adequate, is it? You may as well do that training in your household or in your garden.
So how long is a piece of string? So again, it's also how long or how much can you handle as the handler? You know, you might come along and go, Tulani, you must walk the dog for an hour, and he battles for an entire full hour because he potentially could do. But we need to be able to also manage it properly before we get tired about trying to keep that focus on us. So again, I look at it to say, let's increase slowly, increments. Some people will come to my training center and I won't have any of my dogs in the training center because their dog can't cope, nor can they, all right, because they're panicking about, you know, oh, my dog doesn't like other dogs and so on and so forth. And so we have to take in consideration their stress levels, put it onto the dog's stress levels, which causes more of a problem. So if that's only going to be for a 10-minute walk, exercise of any exercise of some sort, then that's how long it's going to be today. Tomorrow we could do 12 minutes.
That's like, you know, saying I'm training for a marathon.
Marathon.
You're not going to run the marathon.
You're not going to run the marathon the first day and then work backwards. No. So let's rather do it slower. But you will also find that when Roach leaves the property, he will like try and go out fast. What I've also been training Tulani is that gate control and the sound of the gate opening and closing must not be a cue for a pull. So we stop, sit, wait, open. Gate opens. Close. Reward the dog. Open. Dog still in a calm state. We may go through the gate. Stop, sit, close the gate. Not this open the gate and the dog is squeezing through while the gate's still opening. No, it's a calm manner. If you want to go, be calm. So in other words, it's the action has to portray the reward, you know. So
and it takes time to.
It does take time. Absolutely.
So owners who think that there's a quick fix, magic, buy this lead, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I'd be very, very wealthy if I had this magic wand that I could just, reprogram a dog. And so we do that kind of calmness. We get out, we're hoping that we might see somebody on the road, and we stop again. Which way are they walking? We try and communicate to that person that it's actually okay. We're all fine. The big Rottweiler is not going to kill you. All right. So they walk normally past us as opposed to panicking against the back wall, and walking all stiffly and things like that. Because we have had a couple of times when we've had those processes. Also down the road from you, there's a little white Maltese that's often out because it squeezes under the gate. So it's over there. Roach looks at it. We go, leave it alone. Good boy. And we purposely allow him to sniff something else as opposed to focus on the little white rat that's running around the road. So it's those kind of things but what often is happening is that we as the handlers are very, very, very conscious about the entire environment in which we're in, as opposed to hold the dog on your cell phone, texting, whatever like us, and the dog runs straight into the road. We have to be very conscious about every step that we're taking with our dog. It's our responsibility to be able to actually take that dog out.
And be in the moment and actually
be in the moment. And
enjoy
be in the
it.
moment with your dog.
Yeah.
Not just be in there, I'll take the damn thing for a walk again.
Yeah.
I'm saying to you is that it's a
bonding opportunity.
Correct. And it's a pleasurable exercise, you know?
And it's so beneficial. I mean, the reason why obviously I wanted him to be walked is because he's a happier dog for it.
Yes.
He doesn't get up to as much
Correct.
mischief at home.
So what we left with the last time we saw Tolani and Roach is that I said to him that before he even walks out the gate, he does a little bit of simple heel and about turns, stops, sits, stays, downs, that kind of stuff. Just basic obedience. Make sure that the dog is focused on you. We walk back to the gate, stop, open the gate, walk around, turn, don't even go through the gate. Until the dog goes, okay, I'm cool now. What you've done, you've actually mentally stimulated the dog by asking it to do those kind of things, and a little bit of physical stimulation or exercise. Now we can actually go out in a better mood, okay? A couple of other things that what I find with a lot of people is that there's other cues that get the dog excited. As you already said just now, is that Tolani comes to work and the dogs go crazy. Why? Because you'll more than likely walk in and go, morning guys, how you doing? You know what I mean? Yes, excitement. That's all fine. But people come along and put a set of tackies on or sneakers on, whichever. And that means the dogs are going for a walk. Yeah. They'll pick up the dog leads. We're going for a walk. They'll pick up maybe the treat bag. We're going for a walk.
Or they go, we're going for walkies.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, everyone thinks it's great when the dogs all get excited, but it's actually setting them up.
But then you set them up for failure. Now the dogs are just a pulling machine, and people go, actually, it's not unpleasant anymore. Well, you, the owner, the handler, has actually messed things up for those dogs.
It's the same as arriving home. The last thing you want is to have visitors, and when you've got visitors arriving, the dogs are all over them. You have to be able to arrive home. When the dogs are calm, you then greet them.
Then you greet them, correct.
Rather than, hello, I've missed you, which is very tempting. And I think most listeners will resonate with it. It's like you want to, hi, or, I'll see you later. It's actually having that calm because it's better for them.
Correct, correct. If you want to go inside, because a lot of people when they come home from work, they're dressed in better gear, So rather go in, get changed, go on the front lawn, and roll around with your dogs. Play with them then, because you don't mind getting a bit dirty, and the dogs really, really enjoy it. Yeah. As opposed to you, when they come and try and jump up at you because of your squeaky voice, now you're kicking the dogs away and saying, get back, my word, no.
I'm not enjoying it.
There's a conflict there. There's a miscommunication. So, so that excitement, all those cues, picking up your car keys, okay, that often means that the dog is not going, and therefore that's where separation anxiety starts stepping in, going, you're leaving me again. But the sneakers, the leads, the voice, all gets those things excited.
Yeah.
And just calm down. Yeah, we're going for a walk. So what? It's all good. We're going to enjoy it, but let's do it in a decent manner.
And how often? Because is this something that should happen daily? I've spoken to other behaviorists who are saying that you're overstimulating your dogs. People are always looking to, provide them with entertainment. That's actually okay to allow your dogs just to have some rest, to calm down. But how often would you be advising people walk their dogs? Is it twice a day, once a day? I know, again, it's a bit like how far, but on average.
I think it's a good question. And we should be able to also do it that we can manage it. I come along and go, you walk your dogs 3 times a day. And people go, I can't do that. I work. It's this and that. I've got kids and so on and so forth. But other people go, well, we go for three walks a week. Is your dog coping at home? I've got a dog at the moment that I actually brought into the practice today for a grooming session. And it's a lovely dog. I've worked it before. I've trained it. It's actually a really, really, really nice dog. But the owner has gone through serious medical issues. So she hasn't been able to entertain the dog as much as it would like to be. And now it's got the habit of chasing its tail because it's entertaining for it. my opinion, the dog needs more walks or more relationship building, bonding sessions with the owner to get it stationary, if that makes any sense. Okay. And that's at one of the extremes. And it's simply, I understand the owner has had serious issues. That's why I brought it in today, because she cannot physically handle these dogs at the moment. She's broken her neck, back, that kind of stuff. I mean, come on, you can't expect the owner to be able to do everything in that health problem. But if you're looking at that dog needs more. You come along and take your dog for 3 walks a day and allow it to do whatever it wants and just out of control, then you're definitely overstimulating the dog, and the dog just can do what it wants, and it's going to get itself into trouble, and you also. So it's a balance. If your dogs are okay at home and are not being destructive, stressing, suffering of any sort, 3 times a week might be worthwhile for that dog, that individual.
So it depends on breed, age,
exactly,
temperament.
Exactly. As I said to you, I've got these little trackers on my dogs, on my 3 young dogs, and one of them is the retriever cross thing, okay? And it does, I would think, about 1/6 of the active minutes a day compared to my pointer cross Kelpie. That one just is non-stop, all right? Where this one just like, oh, well, you run off, I'll wait here for you. And it's incredible on how you can see the difference between the breeds. They're exactly the same age. The breeds are slightly different. So every dog is needing different energy levels and stimulation. So I do think you need to look at the behavior of the dog at home. Is it coping? Is it happy? If it is, you're doing something good. If it's not, distraction, moping, not eating, you'll find a couple of other issues, maybe even self-mutilation, over-grooming, that kind of stuff. All those things stimulate saying, well, why? Well, we might not be doing enough for the dog, and we can put something in for the dog.
So to reach out to, even if it's a case of having an assessment, check in with your vet, check in with your behaviorist and say, this is what I'm noticing. Am I meeting the needs? Because I think a lot of people, it's difficult when you're in the situation, and this is something also I want listeners or owners to be aware of, is that sometimes when you're in that situation, you can't see a solution, and actually talking it through with someone. And I keep going back to the fact that I didn't even think to say to Talani, go out later. I mean, obviously it makes total sense, but I didn't think that would be part of the solution, and it was such an easy solve in terms of trying to train.
I think it's also good that when you have behaviorists and trainers that are experienced, and we look at it, try and look at it from the most practical sense of the word. You might come along and go, well, that was easy. I mean, why on earth are we paying them the money? That kind of stuff. Well, clearly you couldn't.
You didn't know.
You didn't know.
Yeah.
And I do think that we've all got a very important role to play to make sure that our pets have the best opportunity to improve and also live in harmony within the family. That mutualism is important, that we have that relationship with our dogs. And it is important to observe your individual animals, not just as a whole. Some people have 10, 15 dogs, which is great that they can afford it. They can give those homes to those dogs. But hold on a minute. Does every individual animal have what it needs? And I think what you just said now is that just look at them. Just understand what the breed, the age, and that what those individuals need.
Yeah. And tackle the things and reach out to someone to help.
Yes.
If you see that there is a problem, because you don't have to, for example, put up with a dog that runs out the gate. There is a way to manage that.
Correct.
You don't have to have a dog that jumps up all the time and dirties your clothes every time you go to work or arrive back. There are ways to, even at a later age, to manage these behavioral issues.
Yes, absolutely. It's not just a puppy thing. Not at all is a puppy thing. But you mentioning the gate problem is that I think it's very, very important that we hold on. That gate opens and closes whichever way it is. That dog must realize it's not allowed out unless it's on a lead or with the owner or whatever invited. And just the other day, you saying your problem, I had a problem exactly the same the other day where I rocked up and one of my dogs was by the gate, which I normally have it on the inside of the property. I've got it fenced off around the area, the house, but it must have jumped over there and it's okay. It doesn't matter if it's around the property. But it came to the gate. As I pulled in, I'm like, oh, it's okay. She'll come to my car and she'll more likely jump in the car and I'll drive in. So I opened the gate. She did the exact opposite. She ran straight past my front of my car, straight over the road and up a tree.
She was watching something.
The monkeys.
Okay.
I did not realize that the monkeys were there. Well, I was at fault because I should have been more observant around what was around me, and here in South Africa, unfortunately, we always have to be from a security point of view, but I was not observant. The dog ran straight over the road. Of course, my heart, skipped a few beats, jumped out, called her in, put her in the car. Then we calmed her down. But if I'd noticed the monkeys were there, I would not have opened the gate. Do you know what I mean? So that was, to a point, my fault. But the dog was just so intense and focused on these little grey creatures that's what caused the problem. So we all have a problem. We all have certain issues that we come across. And we always have a slight failing. But I've learned by being more observant now that if the dog's close to the gate, what's around it, why is she there? And I start asking all these questions so we make sure that there's no mistakes.
Absolutely. No, this has been really great advice. And obviously, I know we're running out of time, but there are a lot of topics of conversation around behavior that we can all relate to. But if people want to get hold of you or in contact with you, I know you do some online work, you do in-person sessions. You obviously a very busy man with all the other work that you're doing in terms of the rabies advisory stuff and training. How can they contact you?
So KZN Animal Training, all right? So that I believe I'm on social media, okay? I have good friends that keep me social media,
Savvy.
sane, yeah. Straight contact, 0766 5825 574. WhatsApp is wonderful because then I can actually get back to you later in the day if I can't answer you straight away. And but yeah, that's the best way of getting hold of me.
Yeah, and no question is a silly question.
No, absolutely not. I often come along and just reply, and problems resolved after one single little suggestion. And thank you very much. And they go on their happy ways, and I never see them again. But some people say we need to really sit down in front of you. So, look at it. Don't be scared to ask the question. But also it's like, going to the vet where I don't want to take the dog to the vet because it's too expensive. Well, actually, as I explained to somebody the other day, their dog was getting out. I'm like, what is better? Law case, dead dog, but bites in the community, or just simply a small consultation fee, and most of your problems are going to be resolved. So, please, if we can, just ask.
Pick your pain.
Yeah, precisely. And also respect that there's trainers and behaviorists all around the world, okay, that is their profession and they're good at what they do.
Yeah.
So respect that.
Absolutely. Well, no, I'm very grateful for the work that you've done with Roach, and it's certainly made a big difference. And me, obviously, the reason why I wanted to share this particularly is because I also had the total shame of, as a vet, if people realize that that's my dog, being a veterinarian, owning a practice in the community, gosh, how, cringe. But it also judged the situation based on what's presented and handle it.
Yes.
And everybody
Absolutely.
can do that. Everybody can do better.
Yes. And we can handle, there's always a solution to everything.
Yeah.
Some things might be very, very simple. Some things might be really, really difficult. Well, we never know until we start.
Absolutely.
So I'm saying to you, just, contact us. Yeah. Speak to us. I think it's great.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and your expertise, as always. It's lovely chatting to you.
Yeah.
And also have you in this new space.
Yes, it's wonderful to be here,
And all the best for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode on the Pause and Effect podcast. If you found the discussion helpful, please like, share, and follow our podcast. Don't forget to leave us a comment or review. We love hearing from our listeners. Remember, you can listen to us on your preferred podcast platform. Welcome back to Just for Pets. You're with Dr. Carra.
Hello, Doctor. It's Chanel the Persian. And, I can't seem to stop retching to get this hairball up.
Are you on a special diet?
Excuse me?
Hairball control food will really help. And maybe some Laxapet. And lucky for you, Just for Pets have a big range.
Well, how early can I get some?
Order today and we'll deliver pronto.
Wow, I feel better already.
Justforpets.co.za. Vet approved, pet adored. Get it all to your door.